I read a quote from this sign that still actually, I can't even believe it was real when I saw it. I thought it was like AI or Photoshop. This sign again said, "Hey Winsome, if trans can't share your bathroom, then blacks can't share my water fountain." This is a white liberal in Alexandria, Virginia, not too far away from the studio here. What's your take on that sign?
They are inciting the erasure of what civil rights really is. Saying that trans rights equates to civil rights, and if my husband can't walk into your bathroom, then you, as a black person, shouldn't be able to use my water fountain. This is the kind of equilibrium they were hoping to achieve when they were ushering in this LGBTQIA agenda, and this is how, by them equating it to civil rights, they managed to brainwash the black community into thinking that this is something you should be okay with. You know, you got to accept everything, and it's like, I don't have to accept this.
Delano, a lot of your work focuses on the black family. How has that embrace of wokeness kind of eroded the black family in this way? As Michaelah pointed out, like, as far as the way in which a lot of black people approach a lot of these LGBT issues, I think that a lot of young black people probably are to the point, like, if you're gay and you want to get married, like, no one cares. It's 2025. It is what it is. But I still think black people across all demographics have a problem when you're saying, yeah, a guy can use the same bathroom as my daughter, or a guy should be able to compete against my daughter's volleyball team. Those traces of social conservatism, which I wouldn't even call social conservatism, I think it's just common sense, still exists and are prominent within the black community today.
Yeah, I definitely would say so. And obviously, there are ways in which if you have a community that votes 90% for one party, whatever that party's agenda is going to have, an outsized impact on that particular community. But in terms of how we got here, I'd say post-1960s, and a lot of people will go back to the Moynihan report that talked about the breakdown of the black family. In 1965, it's about 24% of black children were born out of wedlock. And that was at a time where the black poverty rate was about 40%. And you fast forward to today, it's close to 70% of black children are born out of wedlock, even though the poverty rate has dropped to under 20%. So I'd say how we got here and making the connections between the issues we're fighting now and where we were at sort of post-1960s is at a certain point, the moral compass within the black community stopped being right and wrong, good and evil, right, based on a sort of a broadly Christian biblical worldview, and it became oppressed and oppressor. And once we accepted that new framework, right, which people cast in the terms of revolution, once we accepted that, our politicians accepted it, and particularly our churches accepted it, right? Once the liberation theology hit, then this notion that whoever is oppressed, we need to fight for, got sort of woven into the culture. And so then all you do is you keep adding different groups onto that oppression list. And now, to your point, the newest group of people who believe that they were born in the wrong body, and that is why you see many black voters feel, particularly the most public personalities, right? The people, I call them the Afrostocracy, the black progressive preachers, pundits, performers, pastors.
Roland Martins, your Michaelah Montgomery.
Correct. All of those people feel as if they have to speak up for quote unquote oppressed and marginalized groups, because if they tell the truth, they know what's going to happen, particularly on with respect to the Democratic Party and the people who tend to write their checks.
They would be canceled by white liberals. But what's crazy about Jamal Bryant, like Roland Martin, he's a commentator, he's a pundit, say whatever you want. Michaelah Montgomery, he's a commentator, he's a pundit, say whatever you want. Jamal Bryant is a pastor, allegedly, some would say. I don't know if he was ordained or online or not, but like, this is a man who goes into the pulpit, goes into God's house every single Sunday and equates, blackness with transgenderism and all of these things. And it's so scary to me that there are people in that congregation clapping like seals and who aren't realizing that they are literally being led astray, which is I don't know, is scarier than anything that there's not a level of discernment there for some reason.
It's idolatry. You have made your blackness the center of everything.
Yeah.
And that's how you separate yourself from everyone.
Yeah.
And for you as a preacher to literally preach against what's in the Bible, we are supposed to be coming together, regardless of what you look like, where you're from, yada, yada, yada. Jesus preached, and we're supposed to be spreading the gospel to all four corners of the earth. Yet, pastors like Jamal Bryant say that only certain black people deserve to hear the gospel. Because if you don't agree with how I'm preaching, if you don't agree with what I preach on, if you don't agree with my perception of the Bible, then you are not getting into heaven. And it's like, at what point do we trust one man's understanding, one man's perception, one man's opinion, and we take that as law, and then we intertwine that with our faith, and now we have basically, messed up the message.
Yeah.
Oh, I also wanted to add something. Because earlier you mentioned about how, there's the oppressed and the oppressor. And then to go on to your point with how, you have your Merle Martins and your Mark Lamont Hills constantly telling black people that they cannot make it, they cannot do it, the world is so racist. I want to know, how did racism skip y'all? Because y'all are millionaires.
Right.
So
living in white neighborhoods.
Come on. So it's like, if the world is so racist, right? How is it that neither of your neighbors look like you, but you go home and sleep just fine every night? If the world is so racist, how does your bank account have 2 and 3 commas? Yet for whatever reason, you will sit in front of large groups of black people. You will sit on a platform and speak to millions of black people, and you will tell them they will never get rich because they are oppressed. Yet somehow you slip through the cracks. Where this crack at, and how can we all get to it? And why are you not leading the rest of the black people to the same crack you slipped through? Unless the door is wide open and you have understood that if you just lead these people this way, you can keep amounting wealth for yourself that way. And that is the real goal here. It's never to help people. It's to make people feel like they are helpless.
Yeah. And they've also discovered the victim industrial complex, right?
Yes.
That there is a lot of money to be made in just making people believe themselves to be victims. Al Sharpton cracked the code early on. He's the OG of it all. And then many other people followed in his footsteps. You look at BLM, the DeRay McKessons and all those people who came up. The one guy, Sean King, who is probably the most notorious.
Talcum X.
Right, Talcum X. Like the most notorious one, who would raise all of this money for so-called black causes. And the black people never got the money.
Never.
And that's not isolated to him. You look at the leaders of BLM. They raise all of this money. I see you got a new house here, a new house there, a new house there. Got more homes than a lot of white people. And you want to sit here and, again, continue to sell this victim narrative to black people because it's putting money in your bank account. And so they're definitely economically incentivized to continue up, this charade.